Here's a little thing about thread locker, often called Loctite. That's a brand name, but it becomes synonymous with the thread locker. So we use this stuff for sealing up threads, and you put a little dab on the thread, and by its nature it locks up the thread and keeps from mostly vibration from rattling the parts apart. But they make a blue version and a red, a lot of other versions on the back, but generally a blue and a red. Red, you probably use that once in a blue moon because it's they call it permanently locking, whereas blue is removable. So you probably have this red tube the rest of your life. I stocked up because mine went dry, still had lots in it. So blue and red, something that I don't know why they do this, but for some reason the blue, they use blue container and it's actually red inside. There's a little stupid stripe of red here, and over too many choices, I went and grabbed two, and I thought red and blue, great. I get home, I got two reds, great. So anyway, for whatever dumb reason, they package the red inside a blue, and it's from Permatex. I don't know what's going on here, but just be super careful because that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Why not? You think a blue would be blue. A blue container would have blue liquid in it. But anyway, so I think the breaking point of the blue versus the red, call this blue, is removable. It's something like 120 foot-pounds versus almost 200, 189 or something for this. So it's almost double. So a 1 foot bar, 200 pounds on it versus 100 and we'll call it 100. So it's almost double the strength. So there's a big difference. So this is like literally permanent locking applications, like inside your motor or whatever, that you definitely don't want coming apart. So that's it. Get the blue, get the red. Just be careful with the packaging. All right, another tip that I found just by doing it was when you want to go out there and paint something like a cylinder, just get some barbecue paint. Man, this stuff works great. I've had a cylinder that's it's been decades now that I use this on, and it still looks great. I mean, this is like high heat application, and it can take grease because it's a barbecue, and you don't have to go get specialty paint, in my opinion. Grab a can of this stuff, barbecue paint, black, and I think they make it in different colors and whatever. So 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, that's pretty damn hot. So like I said, I've used it on my cylinders on a bike I have, and it's been literally a couple decades, and it looks great. Another trick I like to use is the good old toothbrush. When it's worn out and it's not going to clean your ivories anymore, throw it in your toolbox. These things are so handy, it's unbelievable. For getting grime and grunge out of places and whatever. It's on its way to the garbage anyway, so you might as well get a second life out of it. And it cleans great. I mean, I use this for cleaning emblems on the bike too. A little Autosol or some cleaning paste on there, just like toothpaste, and buff it up. It does a great job shining up brass and whatever little things, and then getting the extra polishing crap out of the crevices. So excellent for cleaning in all applications. And just to follow up on my thread locker, I mean, it's great for doing this too when you're putting together a bolt, nut and bolt, a little thread cleaning, a little rag to clean it off, and then you're ready for the thread locker. So why not? Don't throw them out, collect them, use them. All right, a little bit about brakes. Brake pads give off a dust. I'm not sure if they use asbestos anymore, but they probably do. Who knows? But never clean off your brake pads or wheels or anything that has brake dust on it with compressed air. Use a cleaner rag because you don't want that stuff in the air. That's it's just not healthy. Another thing about brakes, tip-wise, and this is probably old hat, but the fluid is very corrosive. Even when you're up at the handlebars checking the reservoir or down at the rear brake, cover everything around the area with rags because you don't want this on your paint, on your chrome. The brake fluid is super corrosive, and you just be better safe than sorry covering it up. And the one last thing about brakes too is the disc itself. When you store the bike away, don't coat the disc with oil. I guess you could if you're replacing sorry, don't coat the disc with anything. I guess you could if you knew you were going to replace the brake pads in the spring, or when you're bringing the bike out, or you've taken them out somehow. But usually, don't put anything on the disc. These are rust-proof by design anyway. One little thing: if you are using any kind of silicone-based cleaner or lubricant and overspray, just watch for overspray on the discs themselves, because it gets in there, it'll end up on the pads, and then you find yourself with greatly reduced braking efficiency, because that silicone's worked its way into the pads. And just a thought too, if you're doing the wheel tire change and you've got a lubricant, be careful. Just be careful of this stuff getting onto the discs. It's always a good idea to take a rag and some rubbing alcohol or brake cleaner and just wipe off your discs after you've done, work around it like that. Okay, another item if you keep organized. When you've taken parts off the bike, I showed you that other method in part 1 to use a cardboard and actually stick the bolts, the fasteners, through in the correct positioning. But what's highly recommended is what I call dry fit. It's basically once you've taken stuff off the bike, and it can all go back together to some degree, like this mounting bolt, put it back in where it belongs and just screw it in, and then you're done. You've got the whole unit together. Another option is to take literally baggies for small parts that are all similarly go together. Write down what they are and shove it in the baggie, close her up. You can take photographs too of the original assembly. You just got to stay organized with what the photographs are. Another option to keep things organized, besides bins are good too, but also you can wire stuff together. Like if let's say these parts fit together, or there's a number of small parts, like transmission gears would be a perfect example. Physically just run a wire right through the whole mess and wire it up. Then they're all in the right orientation. They're going to stay organized for you. Because worst case scenario is you end up with a whole pile of parts, and then you just scratching your head trying to figure out what part goes where. And actually, a worser case scenario is you figured it out, but you've put it together wrong. Okay, another tip I like to use is when I go to the parts store, or any motorcycle, or anybody can give me some information, I always make sure I'm representing this with a piece of paper and pen. I write down, at least I do, because I can't remember anything. I write down at least 2 questions that I got for the parts guy, because why not? You're there. You might as well get some more information out of the dude or dudette. Who knows? All I can say is I don't know. But you show up and you just gather more information. Like the last time I went to the Honda parts counter, I got 2 great bits of information, which was one was a local shop who does more non-standard work, out of warranty work. A guy gave me the shop name and a card, and he also my next point is something called the 10-year rule, which is floating around the internet, and asked the parts guy about that, which is basically the theory is that bike shops won't work on like Honda, name brand OEM bike shops don't work on bikes that are older than say 10 years. And I was asking the guy, and I had that in my pocket as a question to ask, and he says, oh yeah. He said, usually the problem is that you don't want to get the bike ripped apart and then have no parts. The parts aren't available because it's like, say it's a 10-year-old bike and Honda's doesn't support the part network. I think it's by law that they keep the parts available for 7 years. So you got a 10-year-old bike and it's in the shop and they've got it ripped apart and in pieces, and they find out they need an internal part that they don't make anymore. Honda can't source, for example. What do? Put yourself in the position of the shops guys. Do they go on eBay? Do they find a used part? I mean, what do they do with this bike all ripped apart in their shop? So that's their real reason why they don't prefer not to work on older bikes like that. it's just that big a risk. It's nothing to do with liability, like, you know, they say, oh, older bike, and that made no sense from the start. It's not a liability issue, because they could have liability issues from a 1 day old bike that they didn't work on correctly. So that's why they have insurance, I'm sure. So anyway, that's the answer for the 10-year rule. Makes complete sense to me. And yeah, like you show up at the parts counter or anybody you meet in the industry, have a couple questions in the back of your mind, ready to go. Okay, so I just wanted to chat about I guess measuring instruments and knowing the difference and when to use them. I saw a little chit chat about verniers versus micrometers. And okay, this is your vernier, of course. Measures precisely enough. Versus a caliper, which again, it's a precision measuring tool. I mean, these are both, thanks today you can get these pretty cheap. This was like $20 and I think this was 30 or 40. Good to have. But knowing the difference, besides they just measure distance, they measure a distance. Like say, for example, disc brakes. Need a micrometer to properly measure these, because, and this goes back to the service manual. You need a service manual to know what you need for tool-wise. But so we're showing here that measuring the disc brake wear is on the naturally on the surface that wears. I mean, that's what a micrometer does. It gets in there and measures the distance you need. Versus let's say you incorrectly go and use a vernier. You're measuring, that's probably the factory dimension right there, because it never gets worn. So you're not measuring correctly. If you put a light behind that, you'd see that you're not on a flat surface. So this is the wrong tool to measure discs, for example. But I'm saying it'd be wise to have both, at least these tools for measurement. So start with your service manual and understand what you need in the way of tools, and then their application and how to use them. So instructions are available for both or everywhere, but I'm just saying, I've seen people selling discs on eBay, and they literally had a picture of a vernier like this, saying, "Oh, it's great, works great, it's perfect." But it's not. It's measuring this. You can feel it. There's a ridge there. It's measuring that ridge basically. It's not getting anywhere near to where you want to measure. So just the difference. Vernier versus micrometer. Okay, that wraps her up. Hope you found those tips useful. So you don't miss any, hit the subscribe button and the little ding-dong bell there, and so you're notified. Okay then, we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.